needing the grid, even if you're connected to the grid. And that's the beauty on it. Behind the meter can really mean that you create power on site and you consume it on site, and for a rate that you wouldn't usually get from the grid, because the grid operators always have additional cost involved that they will surplus you for. And even if they are promising you, yeah, we you can buy the power for 3 cents, that's great, but that's not your final cost, because they have transmission fees, they have power on demand, time of use fees, you name it. And every market here in the US, or even every utility, is different with their power price structure. So where you can really go in and create your own power, where you know this is the cost you have for it. You can take advantage of tax credits, for example, and you create everything independently.
We talked with Dan Kaler earlier. He is using tires to create electricity, to create gases that he powers through a generator that creates Bitcoin. That's
Yep.
considered behind the meter. You've also got geothermal or hydropower, solar power, and then also some flare mitigation strategies or methane mitigation strategies. This is all considered behind the meter because they're on their own site, they're generating their own power, and they're using that to mine Bitcoin. Am I correct here?
Correct, absolutely
Awesome.
correct. And you can do the same setup with solar or wind power, for example, like you do with hydropower, as
Mhm.
long as you have the generating facilities or the generators. And in this way, even if it sounds funny, but a solar panel is a generator, whether it's small or large.
And it just, yeah, there's a lot of different setups that go into each type of power generation. So, just, I mean, if you want to just dive right into your presentation, I've got some questions that we can run into in the back, or we can start off with some questions that lead into your presentation. How do you want to do this?
You should have the presentation uploaded, and if you can click through.
I do not. Hold on 1 second. Troubleshooting. Let me go over here. I did see it earlier. Duh, 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 duh. Yeah, I'm not.
Because I'm joining right now from my iPad for the quality here, and I do not have the capability, but we uploaded it last time.
Oh, okay. It's the same one from
Mm-hmm.
the webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have that one somewhere. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, we're doing this stuff on the fly, guys. Let's see. What did I do with it? I should have been more prepared, and I am not, and I do apologize, you guys. So while I'm pulling this up, Gordon, can you tell us, I'm sure in your presentation you're going to talk about, different power generation sources such as solar, wind, hydropower. Which of these do you believe offers the best price for power in the behind the meter setups?
If you have the location and you can really do it, and you have a hydro location capability to run a kinetic hydropower, for example, that is definitely where you're on the lowest end of the power generation. Um, Depends on your location. Is additionally wind a good solution where it can be cost effective? On the other end, you don't have always the same kind of location to produce sufficient of it, or it's intermittent. And the third option and solution, really to be completely independent, would be running a solar farm that powers your facility. And with the right kind of a setting, you really can make it independent and also as a constant power flow, because all you do is you take the intermittent powers in and level them out through a battery component that really brings you the needs you have on site, and it also brings the flexibility where you can build it out and scale it up as large as you need.
Wonderful. Okay, so I have this pulled up. Let me click. I'm gonna click present, share my screen. I am the host. What do you mean? Okay. We're just doing this on the fly. It is not letting me. John, if you are backstage, I need you to come forward and give me some permissions. Let's see here. Okay. he's gonna come forward. So I'm gonna just kind of continue going through some of my questions that I have for you, because we are just running through this on the fly. What are some of the key factors that influence the cost of power for Bitcoin mining operations, particularly in behind the meter scenarios?
Well, as always, location, location, location. If you have a good location where you can access a lot of, I would say, on-site power, or you have good cost of your land, then definitely, or you own the land, then definitely you are on a winning case, because you don't have additional cost for it. And if your land is large enough to, or has the right kind of setting to produce sufficient energy. Let's say you're somewhere in a good position in Iowa with a lot of wind, for example, and you can build something out there that supports you. Iowa is kind of unique, where you have a lot of wind and some of these spots are very sunny. And if you do a hybrid solution with your power, you can downsize your battery capacity, because these two sources of power are intermittent. And if you run or are co-located next to a good water run, for example, a good creek or a larger riverine, or even a river, and you have the access to run there a kinetic power generator, that actually brings your total to a very smooth power production with hardly any battery needs to buffer, because you can definitely pull all these three power sources in and make them usable for Bitcoin. It's kind of like you explained, was a guy who's burning tires and used the gases to run their generator there, and it's nothing else. You're just using other types of generators and bring them all together to mine Bitcoin.
That's a great explanation. I think that it's really important to understand, the key factors that influence this. It helps us when we're building out our mining facilities. All right, John gave me share access now, so I am trying to find, there it is. I found it. Open system settings. Just give us a second, guys. I am almost there. I apologize. Okay, hold on. And here we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. I'm glad that we finally got this set up. I'm going to click play. Gordon, you just tell me when to shuffle through, and
Yeah.
I will do that for you.
Well, basically, I already run a little bit of a kickstart on it, and what it all means. But here, in some slides, we put it together. Go solar as power to be solution, for example, with on-site Bitcoin mining, or even for larger data center operations. And how can you make it work? For example, just to put these things together and run either way your own operation, whether it's small or large, to take advantage of it. And with our unique approach, what we can do specifically with solar and wind as one of the more cheaper or the most cheapest power sources you can get, which are relatively quickly to build compared to other power sources, or where you don't have the capability to build it out, that gives you the advantage to build your own power generation and buffer the energy needs during day and time whenever they, or day and night whenever they are produced, and that you have a constant power outflow, which is mostly needed for Bitcoin miners, as you guys know. So next slide, please. What we usually do is we look in existing infrastructure, because our company is a industrial scale vertical integrated development firm, and where we take a deeper look into locations where would it make the most sense for building out large structures. And when I'm talking about large structures, I really mean it, because it's not just a couple of kilowatts or megawatts. We are talking about each site with gigawatt scale, because of certain industries need a lot of power. And that actually plays right now right into the cards with Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin mining in general, that is really growing into a megawatt and gigawatt scale industry right now worldwide. And specifically with the larger facility owners, they are really looking where are ideal locations where we can do this. And whether it's large or small, what everybody wants to have is a independent power source that is cheap enough to run the Bitcoin mining. And this is where we come to play with the existing infrastructure, where you could technically use the advantage of it, or you build it out as the behind the meter. And next slide, please. Where we took a deeper look into what is possible on each location, for example, to build out an independent power source that serves the energy needs of the one back, please. That serves the energy needs on the side. And what can we do? And we took a deeper look. As I mentioned before, hydropower is a super good solution, works very reliable. And also solar, even if it's intermittent, but there is it's predictable. Wind depends on the location where you are, can be fluctuating, can be a good source. It really depends on where the location is. Of course, nuclear is a super reliant structure, but not everybody has a nuclear reactor in their basement or somewhere sitting on their lot. So that's one of the other sources. Natural gas, absolutely reliable too, but not everybody has a massive natural gas pipeline or the direct access like flare gases or some other kind of natural gas exposures available that they can be collected or used or turned into energy. On the other end, kinetic energy, like for example, riverines, where you can harness hydropower as kinetic energy, for example, is a super good and reliable power source. Next slide. So based on the structure and based on the intermittent power production, you don't want to run your Bitcoin mining only when the sun is shining or when the wind is blowing. You want to run this 24/7 and as smooth as possible to really optimize your revenue stream. And to do this, if you're relying on a intermittent power source, you have to come in with a battery solution. And the battery solution acts nothing else than a buffer. It's just you fill up your bucket twice a day and you open your spigot and let it run constantly out of the drain. And that's pretty much the power consumption of a Bitcoin miner, metaphorically spoken. And you use this as a like a kind of a bathtub. You fill it up twice a day and you let it run slowly and trickling it out and run your operation. There's nothing else like energy or electricity is flowing and makes it very much likely like this. So we identified numerous battery technologies where we are working with, and one of them is mostly known as the lithium-ion batteries. They have been coming down with their pricing, but that's not the only technology that's out there. There are molten salt batteries, there are redox flow batteries. Hydro pump storage works pretty well, and it's proven since a long time, more than 100 years. But not everybody has a high tower or a high elevation on their property and a low elevation where they can pump constantly the water up and down and make it work as a battery buffer system. On the other end, hydrogen as a battery is another very unique and very effective solution. And you can do this also with other gases like carbon dioxide or even with air, to liquefied air and compress it. And when you need it, you can release it back into electricity through a generator. And that is another larger application that is possible to store not only megawatt hours, really gigawatt hours of duration with very little cost of the components itself. And you don't need rare earth materials. You don't have to invent the wheel new, because these kind of technologies are already in large industries integrated. But most people haven't really took a deeper look into it, because there was no need over the last couple of years. Now, with technology evolving, prices coming down, and independent power production behind the meter or as a complete gridless operation is coming more and more, taking a deeper look into it, and specifically when you can mine Bitcoin out of it. Next slide, please. This just gives a small overview. I know it's kind of a tiny description here, but that is a unique behind-the-meter solution we have designed that is for creating also hydrogen on site, and where the hydrogen acts as a buffer and can be regenerated into power for long-duration energy storage, or in time of use where the grid is completely out, or you can run your facility for a long time without being dependent on any additional power supply, even during winter times. And that is specifically the case when you are when you have high production in the summertime with solar, for example, and in the wintertime there's hardly any radiation wherever you're located. You can technically buffer your surplus energy during the summer and make it usable with hydrogen in the winter. It's kind of like you fill up your gas tank for the winter time with surplus produced solar energy that you converted into a molecule for store it longer, because electricity storing for a long time is either way very expensive or not even possible. And this is just a solution for a longer and duration and a higher backup time. Next slide, please. Another manufacturer we have identified with a very unique battery technology is a hydrogen metal battery. And this kind of a technology is used by NASA and approved by NASA since decades. Hardly anybody knows it, but it has already its smaller components used in outer space, and specifically because of its super robust thermal capabilities, where it can withstand very cold temperatures, and it also can withstand very hot temperatures. And of course, here on Earth, we have quite a little bit ranging temperatures, but it's nothing what we would face, for example, in space. And these kind of batteries make it very unique. So where they have their own application for long duration of power storage, and also where they have the lowest degradation. And this type of battery has up to 30,000 cycles with hardly any type of degradation of a battery, which you would definitely face with any kind of lithium ion battery, redox flow batteries, or other technologies. So, and by taking this technology as a new scale here that can run in a small application, like what you see here as the energy rack, what is a little bit larger than a refrigerator, or it can be in warehouse style, where these racks are sitting in for supplying power in gigawatt hours or even terawatt hours over the year with numerous cycles per day. So that means you can refill them and really don't have any degradation in the battery itself for years to come. So next slide, please. That's showing here in the warehouse the application for it, specifically when it comes to larger mining operations and they want to be completely independent from the grid, or just using the battery as taking advantage of low market prices from the grid and buffer the energy in their cost efficient and run their operation then behind the meter. That is the advantage here of these types of batteries. Next slide. Another unique system that is possible for this type of bridging surplus power production, converting it into hydrogen and make it usable during off times or night times or even during winter times, is one of the supplier we have identified as FES Energy Storage, and they provide unique features to be integrated to run a grid independent operation. Next slide, please. It's a little bit larger, but still hard to identify for me even, where it just shows that with any type of electricity, whether it comes from solar, wind, or hydropower, and you want to build a energy buffer storage out of it, the unique location is all you need is energy and water on site, so that you can create hydrogen out of water splitting and reverse it back into electricity at any given time. And this is like a circular business model that makes you completely independent from the grid, where you can run your operations, you have your fixed costs, you know what you have to spend for, and you can use it either way as a constant energy storage or as a backup solution. Next slide, please. When it comes to industrial scale, we're talking about different generator types, but even this kind of a generator here, which is a linear generator that is super unique, where you can run your operation very independent, whether it's with natural gas, hydrogen, or even ammonia as a fuel. And most people don't even associate ammonia as a fuel type because nobody really looked into it. And this kind of generator can start with a small unit of 250 kilowatts and can go up to megawatt scale into the hundreds of megawatts. And this linear generator has a very unique type. For example, imagine you would have a car that runs off 3 types of fuel. It would run on diesel, gasoline, and even on like butane gas. And you could switch over from one fuel to the other at any given time once you run out of another tank of your fuel, and without that you have to stop the engine. And that's kind of the unique approach of this linear generator that makes it very beneficial for a backup power that is independent from the grid and can use numerous types of fuels to run your operation and generate power. Next slide, please. We have integrated these systems into our backup solution for larger data center and Bitcoin mining operations up to 500 megawatt, but this can be broken down to a smaller unit. The smallest the mainspring a linear generator can provide is 250 kilowatts. So there can be really good advantages, for example, using flare gas on site, or having another like hydrogen gas available that is not as pure as you would need for any other type of operation, but you can run this through this mainspring generator, and without having a constant maintenance or cleaning needs on this generator, like what you would encounter with some other generators. So next slide, please. The geothermal cooling is another feature where I can only emphasize this to anybody to bring their energy costs down or their own consumption down. And when you create energy, you also want to see how can I make it as efficient as possible, because every kilowatt hour that you don't have to generate for cooling your system makes you actually more money down the road. And of course, we have heard previously here today on the show that there are a lot of people that are using the excess heat, but and heating the things out of it, which is a unique feature where you can take advantage of. specifically when you use it as a heating source. But nevertheless, every geothermal cooling solution you can use to lower your instant your instant cooling cost versus HVAC operations, and you can secondary use still the excess heat that comes out of the system, brings you the energy costs down and also your equipment costs down. Next slide, please. This is a little bit larger here, where we run also the thermal cooling operations and calculations with Midas Immersion together, where they have the pump systems and the heat exchanger systems that brings the cost down for your cooling. And imagine you're creating electricity on a riverine, or you have another water runoff, and you can also use that water runoff for bringing your cooling costs down and speed up your Bitcoin mining process. Next slide, please. A lot of people don't look into one very unique situation, and I heard it. Bless you. I heard it previously that people were looking into tax incentives and how can you take advantage of it and find the right people to work with it. When you own and operate a system and you create your own power, you are entitled to receive investment tax credits or even production tax credits for every kilowatt hour or megawatt hour that you produce, even if you consume it. And bringing this on a table makes it very unique for any kind of self-generation and self-consumption, and taking advantage of the production tax credit or investment tax credit, which are nowadays tradable. You can sell these tax credits to any other industry or individual and get pure cash in for your own. So that brings your cost of electricity additionally down, as long as you own and operate your own system, whether it's wind, solar, or a hydro power system that qualifies under the investment tax credits and production tax credits. Next slide, please. So with all that said, we looked into all these solutions. There are tax providers out there. They can take a deeper look into it, and you need to see what is possible on your location and in your country. Here in the US, we have a unique situation with it where you can definitely take advantage of. And several systems qualify, some of them don't. Take a deeper look what is possible for your own power generation and take advantage of it. Next slide, please. Just as a simple explanation, what can you do if you have, for example, 20 acres of land? What is the maximum capacity you might be capable to produce? Of course, you can build wind if you are in a good wind situation, but we broke it down here for an average anywhere in the US below the latitude of 42, and what is possible to build out on a 20 acre location with the highest density of solar build out, and how much can you generate with that acreage, and how much is your year-over-year degradation included, plus what is the real cost of solar and battery that have been significantly coming down over the last couple of years, and that you can take now advantage of instead of paying hundreds of thousands or several thousand per megawatt or per kilowatt per day to build it out. And now the costs have been coming down. Next slide, please, where you can really break it down and say, okay, my initial costs are X amount for the solar system. That's calculated here with 16 million. The battery storage are 5 million. Total cost of 21 million. And you have to ask yourself, if I operate over so many years the system on a grid, how much do I pay to the grid, and how much is really what is my benefit out of this? Because when you're paying the utility to the grid, you have no asset that you own yourself. You have no discretion on their increase of power. And with that kind of a setup and with that kind of a mindset, if you take the reverse calculation, even if initially the investment sounds high, there are financing solutions that make it very unique and very affordable to bring these costs down. And plus, you can take the full advantage of the production tax credits that over a effective 10 years of generation, your cost reduce significant. Next slide, please. If you take a deeper look into the 10 years operation, cost of electricity usually would be produced after the PTC of 5.7 million. And if you take the reverse calculation, what you would pay to the grid will be very much more. And you wouldn't own even the asset. And here you can say, even if you're done after so many years and you want to sell the solar asset and the battery asset at the current market value, you can still cash it in or sell it over to somebody else if you don't want to continue the mining, because electricity still is a commodity that has a certain value. And over 10 years, breaking it down, what the production is, and even if you calculate operating and maintenance cost, the levelized cost of energy are around, if you own it yourself and you take the full advantage of the tax credits, are around 2.2 cents per kilowatt hour, which is hard to achieve with anybody from the grid or a utility company. So next slide, please. Even though if not everybody is capable to take on advantage of this type of solutions, there are other with direct PPAs, co-locating as behind the meter. And that's kind of our system approach, and where we bring value to the Bitcoin mining community to provide them with land solutions and power solutions that are still cheaper than anywhere from the grid as behind the meter production, energy buffering, and direct consumption without the additional cost or volatility of the utility prices. Next slide, please. And this is just what we are putting in for additional community benefits and economical growth, where we integrate also the walking lawnmowers called Cheap, and they make it very cheap for our operations, and with additional benefits for long-term during these power generation and on-site power consumption, where we try to integrate as much as possible to be very unique in the market and taking advantage of thermal heat access, what we can use as a secondary heating solution, where we integrate the agriculture as well as the economical growth in the community. Next slide, please. And that's so far everything from my end. I am open for any kind of discussion and always happy to bring new ideas on a table that might benefit the Bitcoin community. Feel free to reach out to me at any time via email. And we are already engaging with a lot of folks in the Bitcoin mining industry, specifically with you guys here from Bitcoin Mining World. It's really a pleasure to work with you.
Well, thank you, Gordon. I really appreciate that presentation. I think the biggest takeaway here is, we're always talking about decentralization of the mining industry. Can we decentralize the hardware? Can we decentralize the hash rate? Can we decentralize the mining, the block template creation, and creating off-grid like power generation is a perfect way to add onto that stack of decentralization. So, I think it's really important, maybe some of these people, like I'm a small miner. I'm not going to be able to build out a system like this, but that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody out there who is looking to scale to, a large facility and wants to generate this much power, especially in certain places, like there's Arizona, there's California, there's tons of places with a massive amount of sun resources to go to solar. And then there's also, like you said, like we kind of touched on in the very beginning, there's other types of power generation that can utilize this, you know, set of at advantages. So I
Mhm.
think it's very important to get in contact with you and try to see what they can learn. Now I'm trying to find my questions because I'm all mixed up over here. Let me pull this up. There they are. Okay. So I have a bunch of questions for you. We've got about 19 minutes to
Uh-huh.
just kind of go over some of this before we close up today. I also want to say, thank you very much for your time today and for rehashing some of these things that we've already been through a little bit before in our masterminds. But you discussed ROI in your
Yeah.
presentation. What is the realistic time frame for ROI when investing behind the meter?
Well, if you really calculate it and break it down, what you create on an asset that has a long-term value, we broke it down just in a 10 years time frame. But imagine you operate your facility 10 years, and of course you had cost over the 10 years, but let's say you stop after 10 years your operation and you sell it to somebody else. You basically can achieve ROI at 0 years, because when you sell an asset that still produces energy, whether it will be consumed behind the meter or it will be consumed or feeds in the power into the grid, it's still an asset that you created or you paid for, and you paid for it, you used it, but once you are done with using, you sell it for a price that is still a commodity out there, and it can be coming down to ROI zero. It depends on your sales price of the asset in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nevertheless, even if you say, hey, I have an energy source that I sold after 10 years, and you didn't achieve the full price, what you paid for, but maybe half of it, and you have an ROI of 5 years, question yourself, what is your ROI if you're connected to the grid? Zero, because you never or forever, it's a never ending energy bill that you will have if you're connected to the grid. You don't own the power that comes from the grid, and here you create a generation asset that you can hand on. It's kind of like you bought once a generator, you operated it, you paid for everything, and imagine you sell this generator later on and you sell it including the fuel you have spent over the years. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the approach you have to see it. You have to a little bit disconnect how it's not that it's broken after 10 years, so you still have a value that you can sell into the market.
Yeah, and I mean, when you take into like VCs and like investing in companies or building a company, most of these people expect not to ROI, like to break even at least until after 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
taking that into account, I mean, it's phenomenal. Now, I'm curious, when looking at the battery storage, when looking at the solar panels, when looking at all of the different pieces of infrastructure that goes into making this operation possible, what's the life expectancy of one of these operations? Is it 25 years, 15 years? Like how soon would I have to, reinstall new solar equipment, new battery technology?
Well, to put it in simple terms, the manufacturer gives usually a 25 years lifetime warranty on the panels. But that doesn't mean that after 25 years, the panel is not working anymore. There's a certain degradation, year over year degradation on a solar panel. But nevertheless, most of them, they even guarantee after 25 years a production output of 80%. And just to give you some information about the Fraunhofer Institute out of Germany, they have their solar panels running since more than 30 years, and their panels have over 30 years only 8% losses. And this is quite a generation if you see it this way. Let's say it doesn't break, no hail breaks it, or nothing else happens, then you can have for decades power generation out of them. Of course, it will be every year a little less. No offense, but this is how it works.
Mhm.
And even after 25 years, they are still putting out a significant amount of power. And as you know, over the last couple of years, power hasn't got really cheaper. It went usually for everybody on the grid up. So, and if you produce your own power after, let's say, you have a break-even point of 10 years, for example, with the asset, then basically your power comes for free, even if it runs another 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
What about the batteries?
Well, batteries is a different approach. It depends on what technology you're using. Of course, lithium ion batteries have a certain degradation. Other technologies have a degradation too. But if you choose the right kind, like what I referred here with NVenu batteries, the metal hydrogen batteries, they have a very low degradation, and they are even refurbishable. So that's a total different approach than others where you have to basically recycle them completely instead of just refurbishing them, take out the anode, put another gas in, and run and operate it for another 30 years. Because this is a unique technology. On the other end, if you have a liquefied air battery solution, for example, or compressed air, or you take carbon dioxide battery operations, small or large scale, it's a cycle that can be used all over again. Of course, there are some wear and tear on the generator, on the bearings, and something else, everything that has moving parts in there. But this is just a smaller cost compared to the entire system. So it really varies from batteries solution and what you're looking into accommodate with it, as well as you need to focus on one thing, choose either way really good inverters, or you build out your facility as a complete DC-DC connection where you eliminate even the cost for inverters, where you can directly run and operate everything DC-DC side. And the battery is just your energy buffer, and you make the best output for it. It varies also from the technology, because with a wind generator, it's hard to achieve a DC power. There are some smaller units, they are capable to produce DC power, but most of them are AC power. So it really comes down to look into a system, where's your location, and what unique energy sources out of the natural resources you might be able to harness.
Yeah, I imagine also that like it's not easy or cost effective to switch between power like battery solutions. So really doing your research into the type of battery solution that you want, what's going to look good for you for, that 25-year time horizon, so that you're not like spending the capital to switch between battery solutions.
Correct.
So I want to kind of go over challenges and risks. We definitely talked about benefits. We talked about like why this is great behind the meter mining and creating your own power generation. But like, what are some of the risks associated with this, and how can miners mitigate these risks?
Well, risk number one is weather events. I mean, we all can face them no matter where, even if it's Tennessee, Florida, or somewhere else, from storm, hail to earthquakes. Anything can happen. But the question is, how robust can you build your system, whether it's dependent on hydropower or kinetic power, or whether it's dependent on solar power or wind power, and what is the safety factor there. So that's number one. Of course, if you have some weather events, they are just short term, you bridge it. And as long as you have a good solid battery storage, and you can afford, for example, let's say even repair time of a system if there would be an outage based on a weather event, for a couple of days or a week, to get it quickly repaired. Because here's one big benefit: you're not dependent on any utility company once they fix the wires, or like it happened in Texas, for weeks or months, the grid was completely out because of that ice storm and ripped off all the power lines. So, I mean, it has been a few years, but when you have your system operation in your own hands, and you're not dependent from any utility, you can make it work again, as long as you have the materials or the maintenance company behind that can fix it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the electric company is fixing their equipment, but when it's your equipment, you're the one responsible for maintaining it, for making sure that you've got
Correct.
that uptime. So it sounds to me like if you're going through the effort to build out this facility, the power generation, you're also going to have staff on hand to, maintenance it and take care of it.
If it's large, then yeah. I mean, just to give you a little bit of an idea, even if you're here in the US and you have um, a home with a roof that is suitable, or you have some space in a yard where you can build out a solar system with, let's call it 15 kilowatts, and you run just one miner with 3 kilowatts on it, then, and you have a battery that you buffer it, you can oversee that. That's really it's not a huge operation, but at least the breakdown is 15-3, because you have to oversize the solar in the kilowatts to balance out your day and night difference and your summer winter difference. You cannot do it 1-to-1. That's not going to work. If you think with a 3 kilowatt solar system, you can operate 3 kilowatt of a mining. That's not operational. But anywhere what I described, below 42 on the latitude in the US, you have a very good, I would say, formula to break it down. How much solar do you need to run your operation 24/7 on your Bitcoin mining, and take full advantage of your self-generated power?
Yeah, and I'd take it one step further. We spoke with Jonathan Cohn earlier, and he was telling us about geographical information systems. And these are, mapping systems that you can use to identify regions that are, high solar density, high hydro density, whatever the information is that you're looking for,
Yeah.
you can map that out using GIS. So I think that plays in really well if you're trying to build out these large solar farms and take advantage of the sun. I mean, obviously Arizona is a place, like obviously California, I mentioned these two places before, but there are other regions where there's high solar density that you can take advantage of. So it just kind of plays hand in hand. Now I wanna touch on some advice for new miners. I'm talking about specifically like those who are just starting out in Bitcoin mining, and maybe they have, couple $1 million on the sidelines. They're looking to get into Bitcoin mining. What advice would you give them regarding power sourcing and optimizing their operations for cost efficiency?
I would say look into several possibilities where you can get the power, or how you can generate it yourself. Like a picture behind me is a site we are working, or we have under contract, where the natural gas pipeline runs through, a water riverine comes through, and where we have a large power production on site, where it's a complete behind the meter system. So if you can take advantage of being connected to the grid in any case you need a backup from the grid for whatever reason, or if you have another fuel type like natural gas, or you have a flare gas operation, or you can take advantage of any other areas in or power sources in the area, take a deeper look into it. There are a lot of companies, they show one thing, but they don't look into all of it. And this is what we are doing. We are taking a deeper look in what is really on site, what unique features can be taken advantage of. And sometimes it's not what's directly on it or nearby, where you have to take a look. Oh, if we connect 10 miles down the road where nobody looked around the corner, there's a lot of power available that we can bring in for relatively cost efficient power line, and build out behind the meter and make it even more efficient. So it's really, what can you do? Cooling, energy production, and running your facility very efficient, and build out as you can, whether it's a few $1,000s or a couple of million, depends on what your capabilities are, but also take the right kind of a system and approach and look over long term. I know I heard a lot of times, oh, we look only for 5 years. Well, if you would have took a look 10 years ago into Bitcoin and only would say I probably run it only for 5 years and stop then mining, you might have cut yourself short a little bit. So, and here really take the view over the long term. You know, for example, even if the operation is running for 10 years or longer, basically your energy pays yourself or pays itself. And instead of being dependent from utility companies, there are even programs, if you hook up your battery system for your operation, that you get additionally paid by the utilities. There are a lot of advantages to do it the right way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, at the end of the day, it's understanding that this is not a passive endeavor. You really do need to do your research. You're going to be doing a lot of work, but if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to take the time to learn how everything plays into the system that you're building and the power generation, then you can really do a good job. I mean, obviously there's so many different moving parts that you need to understand, and that's why you hire professionals. That's why you get a really decent team put together so that you can make this happen. But it's not outside the realm of possibility for even beginning miners to dive into this world and build something that lasts for generations, especially when you're building a power generation plant.
Yeah. Or if people want to take advantage and even if it's a small miner, pooling together, coming on one of our sites, for example, and starting off in their capabilities, we're happy to help anybody down the road and even build out their own facilities later on.
So we have a couple minutes left, just a couple minutes before we move into the next webinar. I want to just ask you your final thoughts, any insights that you would like to share with our audience about maximizing profitability in Bitcoin mining?
Well, again, number one, look into optimize your system, bring your energy costs down, no matter what source it is. And it might be that you are in a unique location where your utility company provides a very reasonable rate where you can start off with, and then you add on your own generation down the road and take maybe even advantage of their programs, what they have locally, plus you take advantage of the investment tax credits or production tax credits that you can involve in your own power generation, as long as you can do this on your facility or on your operation side, and take a deeper look into it to make it as most efficient as possible. Again, energy cost and thermal or geothermal cooling, specifically when it comes to hydro cooling, it provides unique features. They are bringing your energy costs down to cool your system. Air forced or with fans running is the most or the less efficient way. Mm-hmm. And you can, immersed cooling has evolved dramatically, and even immersed cooling can then be connected to geothermal cooling, what brings again your costs down, and you can operate on completely different temperatures than, for example, being in a high exposed heat location where you burn basically your money through the cooling. And specifically our locations, let's say, even if it's in Iowa or even in Arizona, we choose a specific location where the average temperature over the year is already relatively low. And this is around 50, 55 degrees average temperature, even in Arizona, because it's on a high elevation, where it makes it very unique to bring this kind of have already the environment that's cool. Plus, we have access to water on the property where we can bring in the geothermal cooling with pumping cold water out of the well one end and even inject it back down to the ground without wasting water. That's another unique feature when it comes to environmental standards, where a lot of states are looking into it. And specifically in Arizona, you don't want to waste water through evaporation if you have the capability to take advantage of the cooling solution, but without wasting it.
100%. Well, Gordon, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and speaking to our audience and doing this webinar for us. It means a lot to us here at Bitcoin Mining World. We really appreciate everything that you're helping us work with, and for helping our potential customers build out these mining farms. So I just, one more time, thank you so much. And guys, we are going to move on to the next webinar. I will see you guys in the other room.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.